What's up, guys? I'm Rustin from RussMartech.com, and this is another tutorial in PHP programming. Now in this class I'm going to show you guys how to use arguments with functions, so let's get started. In my last class I showed you guys how to create a basic function. We start out by typing in function, hit space, then we got to give a function a name. We could call it whatever you want. I'm going to call mine red because I like using colors. Use the open and close parentheses, hit space, then we're going to end it with a open curly brace. Hit enter a few times, then use a closing curly brace. Now this is the structure of a function here, and we do code inside this open and close curly brace, and we call the function outside the body. So we call a function by using the function name. In my case this is red. Use open and closing parentheses and end it with a semicolon, right? That's how we call the function. So this is the syntax of a function, right? So now we can use arguments with functions. I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now. We have to first start off by typing our arguments in variable form inside this function here in between these two parentheses. So you could add as many arguments as you want. So I'm just going to start off by, I'll call my first variable here blue. Again, I like using colors. Then we have to hit comma, hit space, then we gotta add another argument in variable form. So, and I'll call this variable, let's say green, right? And now we have two arguments here, right? Now with inside this function, we want it to do something, right? We could make it do whatever we want. Let's just make it echo something out. So let's type in echo, hit space, and I want it to echo out whatever's in these two arguments. Right, so let's echo out the first argument, which is blue. So we type in the variable name, which is blue, right? And I want it to connect to the green. So we're gonna type in the period or dot. Then we're gonna type in the variable green, right? Green is our second argument, and we're gonna end it with a semicolon. All right, so now it's gonna echo out our two arguments here, right? Which is two variables. So let's start off by hitting save. Then let's open up the browser. Let's hit refresh. And as you can see here, we have missing arguments for this here, which is our function, because we called the function over here. It's missing arguments. So I'm going to show you guys why. All right, so over here, now we created a function, right? And we added two arguments, right? And we echoed out those two arguments, but we also have to add the arguments down here. But before we do that, we have to declare a variables up here. So the variables, you can name whatever you want. And when we create these variables, they're going to pass through these two arguments. So we're going to create two variables. We can name them whatever you want. So I'll name the first variable red, let's say 1, right? Or blue 1 in this case. And I'll make this equal to, let's say, 5, the integer value of 5. And let's create our second variable. And I'll call this one green 1. Again, you can name it whatever you want. And let's make this one equal to, let's say, 6. Alright, so now we declared two variables outside the function, right? And now we're going to use these variables to pass through these arguments here, right? So this first variable we declared, it's technically going to get added to this argument here. The second variable we create, it's going to get added to this second argument we created here. Now when we call this function, we have to add the variables inside the function. So to do that, we just type in our variable names we created. So again, it's blue 1 is our first one, right? Use a comma, hit space, and our second variable is blue 2. I'm sorry, green 2. Green 1. So now we're calling the variable. Let me start from the top. Now we created a function over here, right? And our function has two arguments. Our arguments are in variable form, right? Our first argument is called blue, and our second argument is called green. And we're in the function we have a task. We wanted to echo out our two arguments here. But to do that, we have to first create variables outside of the function, right? We have to give these variables value. So once we give these variables value, our first variable we create, it's going to get passed through the first argument. Our second variable we create will get passed to the second argument. So then when we call the function, we have to make sure that we add those two variables. That's how it knows which arguments to pass through, because we added the variable names inside of this function here. We added the arguments inside this function. So we could declare as many variables as we want, as long as if we don't add those variables into this function here, it won't get passed through. So let's hit save. Let's open up our browser, and let's type in over here local. And I already got it saved. Mine's just local test. I'm gonna hit refresh, and then as you can see, it added the two together. Our first one is 5, and our second one was 6. Alright guys, so again from the top, so to not confuse you, because it could get confusing, our variables could be any name. You can name them whatever you want. I'm gonna change the names up here. Let's call this one just JJHBB, okay, whatever, right? Whatever you want to name it. Let's call this one, let's say FFDDA. Doesn't make a difference, right? Variables could be anything. We can name them anything. And as long as we add these variables into this function call here, they're going to get passed through over here. And let's just copy it here. I'm going to copy this variable, and I'm going to replace it with this first one here. Paste. Let's copy this variable. Copy. And I'm going to replace it with this variable here, because this is the second one. Paste. Again, our first variable we created, since we added it into the function call here, it's going to get passed through the first argument here. And our first argument could be, again, it could be, we can name it wherever we want, but we have to have the same name whenever we're doing, let's say, a task inside the function. It has to be the same name inside the function. Outside of the function, we add our variables that we want to pass through the arguments. So again, we can name them whatever we want, as long as we added them inside the parentheses of this function we're calling, which this is function red, and everything should be good. Alright, so let's hit save. Let's open up our browser again. Let's hit refresh, and it's still the same, 5, 6 again. Just to not confuse you guys, the variable names we have inside this function here doesn't have to be the same as the variable names we have outside it. We're using variables to pass through these functions, right? So we can name them whatever we want. As long as the variables that we gave value, right, outside the function, as long as we add the names of the variables inside this function call here, the values will get passed through the arguments. The first one will get passed through the first argument again, and the second one will get passed to the second argument. And that's how it basically works. So alright, that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a like. If you want more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. I'm RasimPlebosmerTech.com, and thanks for watching.